The very last words my wife, Emily, ever expected to hear coming from my mouth were not words spoken in a fit of anger. I did not yell at the top of my lungs. I did not use mean language, and I did not beg her to stay with sad tears running down my face. Instead, the words I chose to say were so quiet and so calm that it felt like the entire room went completely silent. Emily was standing there in the middle of our living room, a place that used to be filled with laughter and warm memories. She had her arms crossed very tightly over her chest, and she had a look on her face that seemed very sure of herself, like she had already made a big decision, and nothing in the world could change her mind. She looked me right in the eyes with a gaze that felt like ice. "You can beg all you want," she said in a cold, flat voice that I didn't even recognize. "I am done with this marriage. It is over." In just that one short, painful sentence, 12 long years of being a team, of sharing our lives, and of building a home together were just gone. For a long while, our house became painfully quiet. The only sound in the entire world seemed to be the steady, rhythmic ticking of the old clock that sat right above the fireplace. I stood there and looked at the woman I had built my whole life around. This was the same person I had given up so many of my weekends for, working extra hours so we could have a nice life. I had passed on big job promotions and put away so many of my own personal dreams just to support her and make sure she had everything she ever needed. But instead of starting a giant fight or arguing until I was blue in the face, I simply reached for my truck keys. They were sitting right there on the small table beside the front door, right where I always put them. A small, sad smile crossed my face as I looked at her one last time. "You made your choice," I told her softly as I opened the door to the outside. "Goodbye forever." The look of being so sure of herself disappeared from her face in an instant. She had fully expected me to break down and cry. She did not expect me to be so silent and still. She had absolutely no idea at all what was about to happen next or what the truth really was. I walked out and got into my truck, driving through the quiet, dark streets of the city of Denver. I did not have a place to go, so I just drove around with the heater on. In my head, I kept thinking about the last 6 months over and over again, trying to find a moment where everything went wrong. Emily had not always been this cold and distant person. I remembered so clearly how she used to stay up very late just to wait for me after my long shift at the office where I work as a builder. I would come home with dust on my boots and tired eyes, and she would ask me all about my day before telling me every little thing about hers. We were best friends back then. Then, everything started to change very slowly, like a shadow moving across the floor. She started to hide her phone from me like it was a deep, dark secret. She would go out for coffee with people from her work and stay gone for half the day without calling. She started canceling the plans we made for the weekends, like going for walks in the park, because she said she was suddenly too tired to do anything. Every single time I asked her if something was wrong or if I had done something to upset her, she would give me just a tiny, thin smile. It was the kind of smile that made me feel like I was just imagining things and that I was being silly. I really wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was just feeling a lot of stress from her job. It felt much easier to trust a woman I loved than to face the scary truth of what might really be happening to our family. But as I pulled my truck into the parking lot of a small, lonely motel, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from a phone number I did not know. The message was only one sentence long, but it felt like a punch to the stomach. It said that she had not told me the real reason she wanted to end our marriage. My heart started beating twice as fast as normal. I just sat there in the dark, staring at that message for almost a whole minute. Finally, I typed back 2 simple words. "Who is this?" On the screen, I saw the little dots that mean someone is typing. They would show up, then go away, then show up again like the person was nervous. Finally, the answer came. It said it was someone who could not stand to watch me be lied to anymore. A few seconds later, another message popped up. It gave me an address for a small cafe across town and a time to be there, 8 o'clock in the morning. It said to come alone and not to tell anyone. I hardly slept a wink that night in that cold motel room. Every possible thought raced through my mind like a fast car. I wondered if it was a mean joke someone was playing on me. I wondered if someone was trying to trick me for money or lead me into a trap. Or maybe just maybe, it was someone who actually knew why my marriage was falling apart. The next morning, I drove to the address. It was a small, quiet cafe in the middle of town. As soon as I walked inside, a woman in her early 30s stood up from a corner table. "Jake?" she asked in a soft, kind voice. I nodded my head and sat down. She told me her name was Lauren and that she worked at the same company as Emily. Then she put a thick, heavy folder on the table between us. She said something that made my stomach do a flip. She told me my wife was not leaving because she did not love me anymore. She said Emily was hiding something much bigger than a lost spark. My hands felt very shaky as I reached for the folder. A part of me wanted to just get up and leave without looking, to keep my memories of our marriage safe. But another part of me really needed to find the answers after being so confused for so many months. Inside the folder were copies of many emails and notes from a calendar. There were also several printed photos. None of the pictures showed Emily with another man, which is what I had feared the most. Instead, they were papers about many meetings she had with lawyers and people who give advice about money and houses. I looked up at Lauren, and I could not believe it. I asked her what all of this meant. She let out a long, heavy breath and looked very sad. She told me that Emily had hired these people months ago. When I asked why, Lauren lowered her voice even more so no one else could hear. She said Emily was getting ready to end the marriage without me ever seeing it coming. My chest felt tight, like it was hard to breathe. Lauren explained that Emily had been moving money into a secret bank account that I didn't know about. She was meeting with lawyers during her lunch breaks at work instead of eating. She had even been talking about selling our house before she ever told me she wanted a divorce. I could not understand it at all. Emily had never been someone who cared that much about money or things. So why had she spent months making a secret plan to leave instead of just talking to me? Lauren pushed one last paper across the table. It was not a bank paper. It was a copy of an email Emily had sent to her lawyer. I had to read it 2 times before I could really believe what I was seeing with my own eyes. Emily truly believed that I was the one planning to leave her. According to the email, someone had been sending her fake photos and made-up messages for a long time. These things were made to look like I was having a secret relationship with someone from my work. Lauren asked if Emily had ever shown me any of these things. I slowly shook my head no. Emily had spent months thinking our marriage was already over because of what she thought I was doing. At the same time, I had spent those same months wondering why she had become so cold and far away. Neither one of us had gone to the other to talk about the truth. Instead, we both trusted being silent more than we trusted talking to each other. I asked Lauren who sent those fake things. Her face turned very serious and hard. She said that was a real problem. She believed someone wanted our marriage to fail on purpose. She said she knew exactly who would win if we broke up. Lauren told me that Emily's boss at work, a man named Brian, had become very close to her after those fake messages started arriving. He was the one telling her to protect herself. He was the one who told her which lawyer to hire. He kept telling her over and over again that I could not be trusted and that I was a liar. The more I listened to Lauren, the more all the pieces of the puzzle started to fit together. Brian was not just being a helpful friend. He was making every choice for Emily, pulling her away from me. Lauren said she had accidentally seen Brian fixing those fake photos on his computer late one night at the office. She did not know what she was seeing back then, but it all made sense once our marriage started falling apart. She had been feeling very guilty for weeks and finally decided to call me. I thanked her and left the cafe immediately. I had only one goal now. I needed to talk to Emily before she believed anyone else's lies. If our time together was really over, I wanted it to end because of what was true, not because someone else had written a fake story for us to follow. When I got home, Emily opened the door. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she looked very, very tired. That sure look she had the night before was totally gone. I put the folder on the kitchen table, without saying anything. As she turned the pages, her hands began to shake like a leaf. When she got to the fake messages, she started to cry very hard. "I thought they were real," she said in a tiny, broken voice. She said Brian told her he had proof and that I was just waiting for the right time to leave her and take everything. I took a deep breath. I asked her why she didn't just ask me. She looked away because she felt so much shame. She said she was afraid my answer would prove her worst fear was true and that she couldn't bear to hear it. We sat there in the quiet kitchen, realizing how fear had completely pushed out the trust we once had. The hurt between us was very real. The lies had come from someone else, but we had grown apart because we stopped talking when we needed each other the most. The months after that were not easy at all. Emily told her company about what Brian did. They found out he had made up the fake proof and tried to mess with people's personal lives just to get what he wanted. He lost his job and his reputation, but that did not fix what had happened to us. Emily took the blame for believing those lies without asking me first. I admitted that I should have talked about us growing apart instead of just hoping it would get better on its own. We decided to go talk to a kind helper for couples before we made any big choices about the future. It took a long time and many hard conversations that lasted into the night. We had to build our trust back from the very start, piece by piece. But in the end, we found our way back to each other. Looking back, I still remember that moment when I grabbed my keys and said goodbye forever. I really meant it then. What I did not know was that the biggest danger to our love was not another person. It was just two people who stopped talking and started thinking the worst of each other. We learned that a marriage is only as strong as the words you're willing to share, even when those words are hard to say. Today, we don't let silence live in our house anymore. We talk about everything, and that is how we stay close.